I'm Renee Rochelle, the founder and president of One True Match. I'm here to help you find and cultivate the love of your life. For over a decade, I've dedicated my life to the importance, purpose, and dynamic of human relationships. My team and I are disciplined by faith, love, and integrity to help our clients find the quality relationship they've always dreamt of. Each week, I will be sharing the tools and tips I've learned that have rooted my success as a matchmaker with other leaders around the world.
Hello, loves. Welcome back for our first brand new series, One True Talks on the couch with myself and our incredible guests we're going to have on this series coming up. So I am so excited that Terry is our first official guest in our new podcast studio where we're going to have nothing but intimate conversations, couch talk, emotional connecting levels of what we're really going to bring to you. And we are so excited with all of our audience and viewers and everybody else that has been writing in things to talk about in this season. So, of course, I had to bring on the one and only Dr. Terry DeLuca. And she is the founder and CEO of Impact Early Education. And I wanted to tell you a little bit about what she does and why we brought her on to talk about our topic we're going to discuss today.
Thank you. Well, first I have to say thank you for having me back, because don't tell the others, this is my most favorite podcast to come on. It's so great. And I love that we're on a couch, since you always
so much
suggest
more comfortable.
Couch talk. It's so great. It's such a fun place to be. So what I do is I'm a developmental and educational psychologist, and I focus on interpersonal relationships, mindset, resiliency, all the things that are needed to have thoughtful, intentional relationships with others. And we do that in the course of the education world. So in schools and principals, leaderships, but also with teachers. And so it so closely relates to what you're doing. And
so true.
So many of the foundational principles that we teach and we lead people into doing align with romantic relationships. And
absolutely.
So I love talking about all this and coming and being with you. So thank you.
Of course. Well, we're so excited to have you. And this is one of the biggest reasons why I wanted to have Terry on, because like she just said, our businesses are so parallel in teaching people how to communicate, how to be efficient, how to be effective in all areas of communication. Right. And it just begins with the simple steps of learning how to do so.
And it's so closely related to thinking. Our thinking drives behavior. So
right.
Teaching people new strategies of thinking about things and really focusing on that mindset piece, it just sets the foundation for success later on.
Absolutely. And obviously, that our mind is our most powerful tool.
That's right.
So we have to fuel it with the information that's best. So today what we are going to talk about is 5 signs you're in a relationship with the wrong one. So when Tara and I were talking about topics like, what are we going to talk about? What are we going to get engaged with? What is something that we're both passionate? We talked for hours. We always are like endless. We're like, we should do a podcast on this, right? Like that's what started this whole topic that we're going to talk about today. So we're going to give you our top 5 kind of signs and talk a little bit about each one, so that you're prepared if you're in any of these situations, obviously any of these things that we're going to talk about, you're in currently, so that hopefully you can get into the right relationship with the right person. So the first one we're going to talk about is a lack of connection.
Right. And I want to say, too, even before we go into that you hear so much in the dating world of red flags. Red flags are so huge. And I just want to state, everyone has red flags, right? We all do. We're all a work in progress. We're never there. We've never arrived. And so as we're sharing and talking about these things, don't immediately think, I need to leave my relationship. That's a giant red flag. What we want to do is, there's a lot of red flags out there. We just want to focus on these 5 really important key components that could be deal breakers, so that you can be intentional in your thinking as you're making decisions about who you're with. So the first, what you said, emotional connection. Mm-hmm. To me, having an emotional connection is so different than, you hear a lot of chemistry when you're dating. Like, do we have chemistry? True. Is that there? And I think what can happen is, you show up on your first few dates, you're getting to know people, and everyone presents that best version of themselves, right? You're always putting your best foot forward, and that's great. It's needed. Yes, but you have to get to the next level, and that's where emotional connection comes in. So that's requiring vulnerability, being honest with each other, creating a safety net there. So when you're having conversations, you really feel safe and you're asking the right questions to draw that that true self out of the other person. So if you're dating someone or in a relationship with someone where you're still feeling like you have to show up, and I'm going to back up. I'm not meaning like, of course we want to look great for our people, right? You're dating. You always want to look great.
Right.
So it's not that. It's the emotional piece. If you're feeling like you have to show up as this perfect version of yourself every time, and you can't really let yourself just be you and all your awkwardness and goofiness and the unique things that make you, that's a giant red flag. And it's more than the chemistry of, oh, we're going on all these fancy dates, we're going on trips, we're doing these big fancy things. I would ask yourself, can you be in the quiet moments? If you're sitting together on a couch together with no phones, no TV, no distractions, and can you enjoy that person's company? And can you have long conversations? If you're in a car with them for hours, can you just laugh and talk and challenge each other without having the radio on to entertain yourselves?
Right, absolutely.
That's the emotional connection piece. And so whatever you have, if you're dating someone, if you're looking for someone to date, I would just always keep that in mind, that it is so much more than chemistry. We put a lot of focus on chemistry, but it really comes down to that truly authentic version of yourself being comfortable and enjoying their presence without all of the glitz and glamour of dating.
Right. And I also say, too, is having that deeper connection where you're emotionally vulnerable and you feel safe in where you're at in a relationship. And so if there's a point where, you feel emotionally attacked or emotionally not heard, or you're scared to share something, I always say there's something that you need to work on prior to that to be able to have that level of which you teach people all day long, I as well too, is communication, so that you know how to articulate something that is emotional to you, which you've had time to prepare to connect. Right? So like if you've been in this fun relationship that you're talking about and you've never really had those deeper conversations of what's important to you, and you feel like you can literally open up your entire vault of your emotional box of feelings and all that stuff in a way that is understood or with somebody patient, then that's a big flag. It's not going to move forward to be in a lasting relationship.
Right. Because it comes down to trust. So, and trust is built in the tiny little moments. It's the Gottman, I don't know if you're familiar with him, he writes a lot of books. So the number one thing that predicts a successful relationship, according to him, is, and he says he can tell instantly how couples relate to each other. And it's turning, he calls it turning to each other. So not necessarily physically turning, but when one person says something, and maybe it's just like, oh, they're in the car and it's like, oh, I really like that, whatever and does the other person keep driving? Or is it, oh, really? Tell me why. What do you like? And they share a story. And it's just that natural curiosity of wanting to know deeper. Tell me more. Tell me more about that. And wanting to add value to that person. Really wanting to make them better. Just make each other a better person. That's emotional connection. That's a strong emotional connection. And it is a huge red flag if that's not there.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I think the other thing when we talk about, 5 signs this relationship isn't moving, the needle is not moving further, is when, and all these things should be asked in the beginning. So if you're obviously single and you haven't found that person, write down notes so that when you do find that person, you're kind of going through all these things. If you're in this relationship, really think through some of these things. If you're in a marriage, don't think about how these things can be worked on, right? Because everything is a work of art and it takes time to build. But I think if you have different, like the other one that we want to talk about, one of the other signs is if you have different goals. So your goals have to be aligned, which I'm sure you would agree with too.
Absolutely. So I think when I think of different goals, 3 things come to mind. So you need to have a shared mission, shared values, and shared lifestyles. So for a shared mission, what that is really, where are you going? So that's that intentional conversation, because there's nothing wrong with wanting to, maybe you're new maybe you're fresh out of an old relationship, a divorce, whatever, you've decided, okay, I'm ready to put myself out there. And you want to get different dating experiences. You want to meet other people and see what you like and what you don't like. That's great. There's nothing wrong with that. But that needs to be communicated early on, because being in a relationship with someone who they're not ready to commit, the right person will be ready and right, not just right.
So you need so true. Timing is everything when it comes to that.
So it's important very early on to have that intentional, just what are your, it doesn't have to be a big giant thing. You can be out to dinner and just, hey, so what are your intentions? What are you looking for? Because I actually have had this conversation with someone where I said, I feel something here and I'm really excited to get to know you and I would love to keep seeing you, but I'm looking for a long-term partner. I'm looking for marriage. So what are you looking for? I think that was on the second or third date. Maybe that was too early. I don't know. But I said, I asked that. And then we had a really raw, rich, beautiful conversation that led into. And I think asking the important questions are key, because if you ask boring questions, you're going to be sitting across from a boring person.
Right.
And you're not going to get the right stuff back. So,
and I think if you're in a relationship and you haven't asked this question, and you don't know really what your goals are yet, use this talk as something that then you're starting to think about.
Yeah.
And then, make it into a fun conversation. Like, you don't have to say, okay, so what are your 5, I mean, we ask these questions when we're matchmaking, right? So we're like, what are your 5-year goals? What are your 2-year goals? What are your 10-year goals? Like, all these things, because we want to know that for our client's sake. But in most couple scenarios that haven't met either through a matchmaker or whatever, it's so important that, you start thinking about that and make it into something fun.
Right.
And it doesn't have to be like, so what are your goals? It just has to be like, so I was thinking in the future, like, how fun would it be to blah, 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 blah.
Right.
And then feel out your partner, how they respond to that, and see what they say.
And give them the freedom to disagree. So
yes, and don't shut them down, like, immediately.
It's okay. If you're not looking for what I'm looking for, that is fine. You're amazing. You will have no problem finding other people to,
it's always a famous line. It's not you, it's not me, just together we're not making the world better. And so for that, I want you to find somebody that does make the world better together with the right person too.
So I would say you have to have that shared mission, so you know where you're going, what you're working towards, what you're building.
I like that.
Shared values. And so what that means is that's things like your faith, how you approach money, political views, what is your approach to having children, raising children? How do you approach family conflicts? Do you want to travel? Do you not? Some people are more homebodies, they don't want to travel. Those values will give you the safety and the reassurance as you're working towards your shared mission that person's going to be making decisions that will align with you, with how you want your decisions to make.
Right.
And then you've got to have a shared lifestyle because, like I said, the homebody thing. So if someone who wants this extravagant, I'm going to have adventures and I'm going to travel and see the world and I'm going to do all these fun things every weekend, and you're matched with someone who, I don't really like to travel and I like to stick close to home, and, they're more just a homebody and they don't share that same lifestyle, it's going to be really hard. You're going to have little disappointments that come up. Well, I thought we'd do this on the weekend. Oh, well, instead I'm going to.
Right.
That's easy conflicts that come in, and it's a misalignment, and it's nothing wrong with either of you, but there are 8 billion people in this world, and you can find someone who aligns better that will, in the beginning, maybe it doesn't seem like a big deal, but as time goes on.
In all relationships, when they start off, you're doing all these incredible things and these fun things together, and then as time moves forward, then all of those people that were kind of either doing the things that they didn't normally want to do, or they kind of get burnt out, because your point is right there, somebody that wants to be more of a homebody, finding somebody else that appreciates, and I don't mean being a homebody and doing nothing. It just means they appreciate series, they appreciate reading, they appreciate playing chess, doing card game, whatever it is, opposed to somebody else that is more of like an explorer, right? That loves to go out and see new places and new things. And I think at the beginning, everybody is trying new things, right? Because you're trying to build that relationship. But if you're in a relationship and you're realizing like, wow, I really like to go on hikes and be outdoors and be active, that now my mate doesn't, those are things that are really big topics to discuss. So I like that you bring up that point.
It's really hard to overlook that. And I would think the other thing in terms of shared goals is just if you zoom out from that and think of your overall approach to love. And so, you hear people, oh, what happened with the relationship? It didn't work. Well, we were so in love and I just fell out of love with them.
Right.
Well, okay, so that's one way to look at love, as just a feeling. And that's a great fun thing in the beginning of a relationship. But love is a verb. Love is action. Love is, to me anyway, this is my opinion, it's a commitment to every day. How can I serve my partner? How can I best love them? How can I meet their needs? And it's work. It's putting that into a relationship. So if you have that approach to your goal of a relationship, and a partner is someone who's going to be matching you on that.
Right.
But you're with someone who just sees love as, oh, it's this wonderful, gushy, giddy feeling, and they're not actively taking those little tiny intentional steps every day. That's very misaligned goals, and that's going to lead to some heartbreak. some hurt, some really hard conversations. And so those are, to me, red flags that you would want to look for.
And, I think in all relationships, when you ask people about their past and, the trials and tribulations of their relationship history, it's always like, well, what did you learn from that relationship?
Right.
And when people say, oh, not really anything, and you think, and you wonder to yourself, well, okay, we're all learning something. If you're not learning something new every day, the littlest detail. I learned the difference between a fireman and a firefighter. Had no idea, really never thought about it before. Now I am versed at that. I just literally learned that like a couple of days ago. And I was like, wow. But my point is, if you have somebody that also is like not wanting to learn, and you are like, you always have to be walking away with learning,
right.
I feel like something to better yourself for the relationship you're in or the one in your future.
And that makes me think too, so in couples counseling, often what happens is it's more of like a drop-off center. Like someone comes in and it's like, here they are, fix them. These are the things they do that make me mad, that are destroying our relationship. And it's really difficult for people to look in because the only person we can control in this world is ourselves. We may want them to change, but we can't change them unless we change us. And so having the ability to look at previous relationships that didn't work and actually have that personal awareness, the personal leadership skills to look within and say, what was my role? Look in the mirror. There's always something you could have done differently, or, maybe you just chose poorly and stayed too long. There's different things like that. So, but that leads to the next topic. I think that transitions us really well into the next topic, which is if you're matched with someone and you're in a relationship with someone and one person is always giving in and always compromising and the other is not.
Yes. That is definitely true. That's like number 3, right? Are we at now number 3?
Now we're at number 3.
Yes, exactly. Like you have to have somebody that's willing to give and take, and not always take or always give in a relationship.
And I don't know. You are by far the expert in this, but I think you would agree. It seems like in many couples, there's always one person who is just very intentional. They're, especially in the newer stages, they're intentional. They're doing everything they can to put into this and make this work. And then you have another partner who is more, they are intentional about not losing their freedom. They don't want to lose their independence. They really want to let me protect what's here because I don't know what's going to happen. And that's a misalignment. And so kind of what we said before, when one is ready, they could be right, but they need to be ready too and be in that same spot because it takes that whole like giving and compromising. You're building a foundation for a relationship.
Right.
You can't have one person who's there like pouring the concrete, hammering, like getting the foundation going, and the other person's nowhere to be found.
Right.
That person's going to eventually, the one who's putting everything in, will eventually
start to resent and regret and have all this built up frustration, from not being an equal relationship.
Yeah, and so that's another thing where it takes courage. It takes boldness and it takes a lot of inner reflection and self-awareness and just having, it goes back to being ready to begin dating and being ready to be in a relationship and making sure you have done the work, because it's easy to fall into that trap because you like the person, you're attracted to the person, and they seem like a catch, and then they're not meeting you on where you're at. So I think a common thing is, well, I'll just give it time. I'm just going to give it and wait. And so if you find yourself in that situation, I would say zoom out, a more broad approach, and look at whatever this giant red flag is you have on them not compromising, are there other characteristics positive characteristics that come to the table that are worth your time and your heart while they're working and building this? It holds you in the game because those positive things so outweigh this lack of contribution. And are you willing to stay if you're seeing progress? And so it's a lot of internal, what are you willing to put up with?
Right. And I think, the biggest thing that I always tell everybody, before you get into the next relationship, if you still have not found that person, you've got to practice these tools or these ways of communicating with your family, your friends, your children first. Because if we're not mastering a new way of thinking, we're going to continuously have this fear of a relationship. And when you maybe be with this person, if you still don't know how to do it, it's never going to work. So,
Exactly.
obviously in my business, not only do we match people, we do a lot of coaching. And I hear all the time, I'm fearful that I might fail a relationship again. I've been married a couple of times. I've dated a bunch of people, but I have a fear that I'll never meet this person. Or if I do, I'll mess it up, or I'll do. And I'm like, well, we got to work on that then first.
Right.
If I was to guarantee you, and I can't guarantee anything, but introduce you to somebody that is totally sound ready and dating with intention, would you freely jump in?
Right.
And I'm like, you don't have to answer me right now, but if you have any past fears, then right there you're sabotaging it.
And I wish I had time. We don't have time, but
I know. It's time.
so
We have two more we have to get to before first we're going to get the red light we always get.
Right, but I have a book. I haven't even told you this. I have a book deal.
Oh my
book
gosh,
is
I
coming
love
out,
it.
and it's focused on these standards of behavior, but really it's personal leadership skills. So it's ways to think and how you should be thinking and leading when I say personal leadership, it's not how you're leading your team, it's how you're leading you and how you interact with people in the world. And it is so critical in a relationship.
It's so critical.
So maybe one day we'll talk more about that.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to bring you back on with
just
that.
Having the right ways that you think. So things will go wrong. We're human. No one's perfect. And in a relationship, there's going to be little struggles. So it's all, how do you handle that? And how do they handle that? And so that actually leads into the next topic, which is differences in communication styles.
Number 4, if you all are writing this down.
Number 4. So a giant red flag, and one that makes it really hard to overcome, is if you have different communication styles. And so the big thing that comes to mind for me is fighting and disagreements, like what we were just talking about. And I know Gary Chapman has love languages, which is so important. I don't know if this exists, but my personal opinion is there should be fight languages. So what is your approach to disagreements? So a lot of couples, the demise of the relationship is whenever there's a disagreement, it's me against you. And I'm so focused on being right. And maybe you are right, but you're going to be right and alone.
Right.
I would rather, you've got to have that escape that mindset of me versus you, and I have to prove my point and be correct. And instead, it's the two of us against what the problem is. We're going to, I once had a great couple that we both know that shared, they fight holding hands, and figuratively, and I think physically too, but, you have whatever this is that you're disagreeing on, big or little. And it's how are we going to solve this problem together with respect, with integrity. And it's so important that you have boundaries in place when you are not in the heat of the moment. So when you're having your couch talk and you set in place, name calling, raising our voice, tone of voice, all these different things that people instantly go to, which unfortunately is a lot of our baggage we bring in from childhood. It's what we saw.
Right. And it's funny.
What we grew up in.
It's so funny because, I was always taught, and I'm sure most of us were, maybe it was forgotten, treat others, and it says in the Bible, treat others the way you want to be treated, like love your neighbors, right? And so it's the same thing that when people argue and get their blood pressure so boiled up by a fight or some type of disconnect, and they're so right and they're so entitled, it's like, that's when you have to just take a deep breath and let the fuses go. Well,
and I always tell my clients, actually, I take the golden rule a step further. So it's treat people. We were taught that, yes.
Right.
But it's also treat people how they want to be treated.
Right, because you wouldn't want somebody yelling at you.
Exactly.
So that's why I always say I don't understand when two people if you're treating somebody else like that, then obviously that's how you want to be treated, and think that through. That's not right.
And it's also, so we hear a lot about taking you need to understand where they're coming from, take their perspective. Yeah, that's great. However, it's taking that to a higher level too. So you can have your opinion on what's right or wrong and whatever we're arguing about. I can have mine. But we're coming at that from two completely different people. So you have your experience, you're bringing in your background, your thinking, your knowledge, whatever it is that you have your viewpoint on it. I'm coming in with mine, a completely different. We experience this in two different ways. So you can go head to head on mine's right, yours is right. But what you've got to do to succeed in a relationship, and you need to be with someone else who will do this too, is you leverage those differences.
Right.
So it's leveraging those separate realities. And so that you take, okay, you think this, I think this. Now what do we do with that? How do we both win in this? How do we move our relationship forward? And it's really difficult if you are someone, it all comes back to me to emotional intelligence. If you're with someone who doesn't equal you, you're not equally, you need to be equally yoked in the Bible.
That's what we say. It's true.
I feel like you need to also be equally yoked in the level of your relationship understanding and self-awareness, emotion regulation. Because if you're with someone who cannot do that, they fly off the handle, they criticize, they critique, they go to all of the stonewalling, all of that.
You have to find somebody that also chooses to want to be in a relationship and work on a relationship.
Yes.
I mean, that's like, I feel like the easiest tip to tell somebody. If you're finding somebody that's such a struggle and it's like trying to put a round peg in a square hole and it's just not working, it's not working.
Right.
The reality of it is you're not with somebody else that's relationship minded like you are. So the outcome will probably not last.
Yes.
So you've got to get somebody in the right space or educate them if they want to. And if they don't, it's not that they don't love you, it's just not the right person.
Not the right
Which
fit.
brings us to the last point. So that if you're writing this down, write down number 5. If your gut says no, that's probably your answer of why, we say the 5 signs of relationships is possible that you're with the wrong person.
Yes.
And we have like 2 more minutes, so I'm going to let you touch on anything. This is why Terry's here. We want to get her input too on this.
I'll tell you, so for the gut piece, so sometimes that can be, you have your deep inner knowing, but we're so busy and distracted with work and life and phones and everything. So what I suggest is take yourself away. If you have a thinking spot, if you have, wherever you spend a lot of your time, maybe it's in your car, but you need to I pray, but if you're not a Christian, however you do things, but you get really quiet, you pray, and then whatever that first thing is that drops into your spirit, or maybe it's whenever you're with that person. And I've had this moment where I was with someone and it was like, you know what? I just had this epiphany. Nothing was even wrong. We were having a great time. And I had this moment where I was like, I don't want to feel this anymore. I've felt this in other relationships. It's like the feeling of being lonely in a relationship. I don't want to feel this anymore. And guess what? We're not in a marriage. I don't have to stay. Like, I can leave. There's got to be someone else out there who will put me first as a priority. And so I would say we get caught up in this, they're a great catch. They're hot. They're attractive. They're successful. And maybe it's something you're proving to yourself that you can land this type of person, or you want to prove to others, like, look at my catch. Look who I'm with. This person is choosing me. But you don't align on all these other things we've just talked about. And in your gut, it's not feeling right. And this might not be something for the rest of your life. So you go to your deepest knowing of you. And don't approach it from feeling and giddiness and gushy and all that. Approach it from wisdom.
Right.
So instead of, they're hot, they're successful, they check off all these boxes,
instead of going for the picture.
Yeah, you go for the life. Is this someone I want to sit in the quiet moments with? I'm still happy in their presence and want to be around them when we're doing nothing glamorous, when we're cleaning a garage.
God forbid something happens. Would I still want to be holding hands with my best friend, my passionate love, like all of these things, right? Or is it just based on an image that you have and the other partner doesn't?
Right, because often we see so much potential in what they could get to, and we stay stuck. We're not a tree.
Right.
We're not stuck. We can leave. Whoops. And so I would close this out by saying my challenge is to really, truly, if you're considering marriage with someone or long-term relationship, right, just to really evaluate these 5 points where things stand. And at the end of all of it, whatever that deepest knowing of you, from a place of wisdom, not a place of giddiness and what this could potentially be, look at it from a long-term, your life, your happiness, because we are ultimately going, when things are easy, it's peaceful, and joy and peace go hand in hand. And that's what we want. That's the ultimate goal in life for all of us.
So true.
So you go with that wisdom choice. And it's scary to think of leaving. And some people stay in a relationship way too long, months and years longer than they probably should, because we naturally have a fear. It's like loss aversion that humans have. We don't want to lose what we have. But I promise you, there's, again, 8 billion people in the world.
I know, and it's always better to have loved and lost than never loved at all, so you truly get to the one that you're searching for.
And if you're listening to this podcast right now, you obviously have a desire in your heart for a long-term relationship, and that desire comes from God. He gives you that for a reason.
And when you get it right with the right person, it is so amazing. It's a witness to it. It every day with our couples, and it's just incredible. I'm
going to do a cheesy Bible verse here, and then we can close out. So it's Ephesians. What comes to my mind, Ephesians 3:20. So it's that God can do immeasurably more than we ever can ask, think, or imagine. And so
I love that.
Hold on to that verse, that He does have someone out there who will really, truly be more than you could ever dream of. And if you're in that and it's great, go for it. But
Right.
any of these red flags, and listen to your wise knowing and go ahead and make that hard decision. And then come to Renee. That's what
Right?
One True Match is here for, to help you through.
And I appreciate that plug as always. And we are going to have all of this in our notes. So to learn more about what Terry does and all things that she's sharing and upcoming books
My
and
book,
things that you
yes,
have,
yes.
we're so excited to have you on here to be with
Thank
us. We'll
you.
definitely have you on for more talks
Yes.
going forward.
I love
and
coming on. This is my
we hope
favorite.
that you have found this beneficial and helpful. And please continue to write in, ask us your questions so we can respond to your individual concerns, thoughts, questions, whatever it is on each one of these talks. So we're going to
That's
love
right.
and leave you. And thank you, Terry, for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Can't wait to come back.
Have a blessed day.
It's been another great talk on this episode of One True Talks by Renee Rochelle. I look forward to our next chat. Please write in your questions and comments so I can be sure to talk about whatever it is you want to discuss in our next upcoming episode. Lots of love. God bless. XOXO.